Here we are.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
How are you?
Okay.
I have like 10 minutes, unfortunately, but we'll do our best.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are live. We've had some technical issues this morning. I think that the reason is because the internet is a little overloaded right now. So hopefully, we can get in as many questions as we want, as we can. So welcome everybody. It's Friday, so it must be Friday Facebook Live with Tanya and the panel of legal experts. We have Carl Schusterman on the line. We have Chris Musello. Chris, I think, is trying to connect to the audio right now, so hopefully he'll be able to connect in a moment. And we also have Jacob Sapachnik. I'd like to welcome everybody who is joining us now. I see we have a lot of people. I apologize for the delay. We had a technical hitch. Chris, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. I was just saying we had a technical hitch, but we are good to go now. So I wanted to welcome everybody who's joining us. G is saying hi. Joe is saying hi. Tit, Lynn, Louise, Sandy, Grace Credo. Hi, Grace, Louise. Lisa's watching. So we have a lot of people watching us from all over the world. And we'll get right to it. So as I was logging in, as we were waiting to connect, I was just thinking that it's just a month ago, almost to the day, that we had the last Facebook Live session, and it feels like it's another universe. Yeah. It feels like it was another world that we were living in 4 weeks ago. And I'm sure that, like everybody else in the world, we are all, feeling very scared, overwhelmed, stressed. And I think all of us lying awake at night, wondering what's going to happen, feeling very uncertain, and also, waking up in the morning and thinking, it feels like a movie, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Feels like a bad movie.
Yeah, it sounds like a slasher movie or something.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly. So
it's getting worse every day. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's getting worse. So, but I do want to just start off before we get to the questions at hand, just to salute all our healthcare heroes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I really feel that, I've been working, as any of the panel, I've been working with all of you and all of nurses for so many years now. And I really feel that there is a quality within each and every one of you that is so special. You have so much heart. And really the work that you do, the sacrifices that you make is just so appreciated. And we are so inspired by your courage, your bravery, and your dedication to your patients and to everybody in the world. So we just want to thank you. Just personally, it's become very real. I had my niece and nephew were tested positive. My niece was in hospital on a ventilator and just came out. So, this is very real to all of us. And we just want to, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. It's a very fluid and changing situation. So we've had a lot of things that have happened in the last few weeks. I'm just going to read off a few of them, and then we can get to the questions. So on the 18th of March, the USCIS suspended all in-person services. And on the 19th of March, the State Department issued a level 4 warning to advise everybody not to travel international. On March 20th, the USCIS announced the immediate and temporary suspension of premium processing for L1s, H1Bs, and I-140s. On the US Embassy, effective on March 20th, also suspended interviews in an effort to slow the spread of the COVID-19 until May 3rd. And then the big topic that we have that has happened with all of these recent changes is that the State Department issued a statement on March 26 that all medical professionals, particularly those working to combat COVID-19, should contact their nearest US embassy to request a visa appointment. If you're a medical professional and have an approved I-140 or other immigration petition, you should contact the US embassy or consulate nearest to you to schedule a visa appointment as soon as possible. There was some confusion on this statement, and the State Department clarified it on March 28th, saying that only RNs with an approved EB3 petition and a priority date of January 1st, 2017 or earlier will qualify for this provision. So as we can see, there's been a lot of changes. There was obviously a lot of confusion, a lot of rampant speculation. So I think let's maybe just start off, if you each want to just kind of give a comment of what we've seen in the last few weeks, and then we can get to the questions. I have a lot of questions. People have sent me a lot confidentially and the Fora Forum, and also Fora Forum before we forget to thank you for giving us this opportunity. Louise, Jean, Paul, and all the Lafora admins, thank you for giving us the opportunity. To the panel, so can you maybe comment on what we've seen so far, your thoughts, input?
Tanya, I have, while I have had a number of nurses attempt to get the visa, we're seeing challenges probably because a lot of the embassies and consulates are either shut down or they're trying to limit to items for U.S. citizens and or permanent residents. And so that's one thing. Second thing is we've seen some inconsistent adjudication out of both the U.S. Department of State, who runs the embassies, and the Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, which run the airports coming into the United States. And the issue there seems to be that some nurses who have a valid I-551, which is the immigrant visa, are being told at the airport that that is not considered permanent residency. And it's a real subtle point in the law, but I know, well, we're trying to work on getting clarification to the Department of State that those with I-551 visa stamps should be admitted into the United States. But I do know that there have been some nurses who've been turned down. That's sort of another issue. I have, on the other hand, heard of some nurses in the Gulf countries, UAE, and the places, the Abu Dhabi and Dubai, where those visas have been issued, even if the nurse hasn't gone through the NVC process. It hasn't happened to me personally, but this is an immigration attorney friend of mine has told me that he has had 2 nurses actually just pay their NVC fee bill at the embassy. So, we're seeing this being rolled out, even though it's being rolled out somewhat inconsistently. My guess is over the next week or 2, we'll probably start to see some consistency. And so if the nurses do want to come to the United States and they can, and the embassy is open and they can secure air flights, all of which are obviously in very fluid situations right now, I think that the nurses will be able to come over, if they want to. It's obviously a scary time and people may want to stay home for another few weeks. But the good news, I think, is the Department of State is starting to hear the message, and they are starting to put prioritization programs, inconsistently, mind you, but they are starting to put prioritization programs for healthcare workers, of which nurses make up the largest segment of that.
Yeah. Carl, Jacob, are you seeing the same as Chris? Any other additional comments to add to that?
I think that was excellent what Chris said. But it is a changing landscape. I mean, the government agencies, like every couple of days, put out another memo online. So what I've been trying to do in the last few weeks is I establish an immigration update page for the coronavirus. And when I see the government agencies, whether it's USCIS, State Department, whatever, even if it's an article in the newspaper. So we actually have a subsection on doctors and nurses and what different organizations are advocating as far as speeding up the process for them to come to the US. So I'm I'm trying to keep myself and our doctors and nurse clients up to date with that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Carl.
we did the same thing. We're trying to keep people updated with the resource center, but what Chris said basically summarizes what's happening. There's a lot of inconsistency. If the embassies are not open, people are trying to do something. There's a lot of information from clients who are applying and getting results, and then others are trying to do the same thing and they're not getting it. So I think probably, like you said, in the next couple of weeks, we'll know more. But I do feel that embassies are trying to give priority to healthcare workers. And so, we need to push that more for sure.
Okay. So it seems like everybody is seeing the same picture. There are a lot of inconsistencies. There's still a lot of confusion. We will keep you updated as this picture evolves. I think we actually even had one nurse, her family member, contacted the NVC about another query, and the officer actually told this family member that the nurse should go ahead and try and expedite their case, and contact send their documents to the NVC expedite@state.gov. But this nurse didn't even have a current priority date. So, I think at some of the embassies, there is confusion as well. And hopefully we will see that being clarified and a clearer picture emerge. So we're getting some questions. I've got a lot of questions that were shared to me privately and also through the forum, admin forum. So I'm going to start reading out those questions. So, and then I see that some of you are also posting some questions into the chat. Please feel free to post your questions and we'll try to get through as many of them as possible.
Tani, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave. I have a call in about 5 minutes.
No, that's okay, Jacob. We understand.
I just wanted to support the panel, and you guys stay safe, Carl, Chris, Tania.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you for coming on.
Be safe.
I'm sorry we had our technical hitch this morning. I think the internet and Zoom are just completely overloaded at the moment.
I couldn't even log into my other one. All right, see you guys.
Thank you, Jacob. So we have an email from Joe, who is basically asking about the 221G situation with the Manila Embassy. I know that's something that we've spoken about before. Chris or Carl, do you want to maybe speak a little bit about that?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so as we know that many people received 221Gs in December, January, and February. I believe the problem is likely solved, and I say likely because right around when I heard in early March that the problem was solved, of course, the date retrogressed back to January of 17, I guess. And so the vast majority of nurses who received the 221G in December, January, and February, they became no longer current as of March 1st. Having said that, I do believe it to be solved, and I do know of at least 2 other nurses, different than the nurses I'm talking before, who I have heard received their visas who had 221Gs in the first couple of days of March. But between the fact that the dates retrogressed and the COVID-19 situation closed or limited access to the embassy in Manila, it's hard to say for certain. So I guess there's good news, which is I think that it's solved. But until the retrogression issue is solved and embassies open, it's hard to say for certain if they are. One other point, though, in order to get this expedited visa that I was talking about before, you must still qualify for the visa, which means 2 major things. One, of course, you must have your visa screen. It's not enough to just have the I-140. And 2, your priority date must be current. I suspect, Tanya, at some point someone's going to ask us about where we think priority dates are going. And so maybe I can just jump the gun on that, or would you prefer if I just wait?
Go ahead, Chris, because I'm just reading a question right now that's who's asked, someone who's asking that exact question.
Yeah, and Carl, I don't know if you feel differently. Always predicting the visa bulletin is always very difficult, and I don't have any inside information at all. But the Department of State is supposed to try and issue all employment-based visas before the fiscal year ends in September. And there have been very few immigrant visas issued in March for obvious reasons because of COVID. And so my hunch is that at some point, the Department of State is going to actually have to rapidly accelerate the visa bulletin to just try and get anyone a visa so that they get as close to that 140,000 as possible. But I don't know if Carl has any information or sees it differently.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, it's like guessing the stock market or something. It's really tough.
Which is very volatile right now.
Yeah. So what we'd like to do, because I'm the last one who should make any predictions, but Charlie Oppenheim of the State Department, he meets with the American Immigration Lawyers Association once a month. And as soon as he comes up with his predictions, we just post them online. So far, he hasn't said anything about the coronavirus. Chris may very well be right, but I just don't know one way or another. We'll see what Charlie has to say in the coming month.
Yeah, I think it's just such a fluid, such a changing situation. It's unprecedented. No one has ever experienced anything like this. And the only thing that we can say is that, from our perspective, we will be, from the panel's perspective, we will be keeping you updated as soon as there are any changes that come to play in that regard. So there's a question from John, who has said that he's wanted to speak to the immigration lawyers for so long. He has an important question. Can I comment here in the chat box? So John, please go ahead. We're happy to hear your question and to help. We have a lot of people joining us: Alyssa, Ted, Shing, Blessy, Angelo, Yane, Jay. Okay, so here's John's question. She was a former immigrant in California, petitioned by her uncle way back in 2014. Then she was sexually molested by her petitioner, causing her to return to her home country, the Philippines. She had a green card and was a former permanent resident in the US. Now she is an NCLEX passer and has Social Security USA. And my question is, will she be able to come back into the US as a permanent resident?
Well, depends how, if you're a permanent resident of the United States and you leave for even over 180 days, there's a rebuttable presumption that you have lost your green card status. And if you leave for over a year and you don't have a reentry permit, then you've definitely given up your permanent resident status. So I'm not clear how long she's been gone, but it's sounding to me like she gave up that green card, she abandoned it, and she has to start from the beginning again.
Okay, thank you for that, Carl. Okay, I'm going to move to some of the questions that were sent to me directly. So I have one confidential question that was asked. This person, I mean, I know the answer, but I'm just going to post it to the panel anyway. I was hired by a direct hire client. Will I be deployed to this client if I come through to the US now? My boyfriend was sponsored by a staffing company. Can he ask where he is deployed? So any comments on that? Because I think a lot of nurses are concerned that maybe with COVID-19, they were sponsored by one employer, but they might be expected to go work, at another employer or in another location. You want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I mean, you have to work for the employer who petitioned your I-140. So that part is very straightforward. If you are with a direct placement scenario, like a lot of Tanya's clients are, then there's usually a hospital listed on the petition, and that's the hospital you should expect to work for. Sometimes, I know Tanya works with hospital groups, and so the hospital group may have 2, 3, 5, 10 locations. And in many instances, I don't want to get too specific, but in many instances, the I-140 petition allows you to work at any of those 10 locations. And so you should work with your I-140 sponsor to find out what's the best location for you and what's the best location where they have a need for your help. If you're with the staffing company, The rules tend to be a little looser as to where the staffing company can place you, but the petition has to be filed a certain way in order to give the staffing company that kind of flexibility. But what's absolutely not acceptable is for company A to sponsor you on the I-140, you to get the visa, and then go work for a different employer in a different location. That is, even putting aside the fact that you probably have a contract that bars you from do that, that's of course immigration fraud, and so we would absolutely never recommend you do that. So it sounds to me that Tanya, that the questioner really needs to talk to their petitioner to see that there may be a few options, and the petitioner is probably best to give them the options.
Yeah. And I think, you know, just reading between the lines from this person who asked the specific question, you know, they're worried maybe they might be deployed in an area where there is an enormous need, you know, and there's a surge of patients, and that might not be where the original petition was directed anyway. So, you know, thank you for that question, because we've got that question quite a lot from a number of different people. And as Chris said, from a direct hire perspective, the petitioner that you've sponsored, you know where you're going to be going, and that's where you're going to be going, because that's the way that the immigration is set up. But if you are sponsored by a staffing company, please make sure to reach out to that staffing company and then to discuss that with them. And I'm sure they will help you. So we have another question. I am worried about coming to the US, but I have a notice to schedule my embassy visa interview. Should I delay? Can I delay? Sorry, she said, can I delay?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can delay, but I should mention something else. If you're approved for a green card at the embassy, you don't actually become a permanent resident until you enter the United States. So I understand why people would be worried at a time like this. I think we're all worried. But once the embassy approves you for the green card, I'll say, but like I say, you don't actually become a permanent resident until you go through the airport in the US. But once the embassy approves you, you have 180 days to come to the US. So if I were in that situation, I would go and finish the interview at the embassy. And if you and your employer agree to delay your entrance to the US, you do have that 6-month period.
Okay. So that actually leads to the next question that I have. There is a question from a nurse who has already been through the consulate and is now into a month of their 6 months to enter the country. And obviously there are the travel restrictions. If the travel restrictions continue, I mean, we don't know, but just asking the question, if the travel restrictions continue past the 6 months, any suggestions of what can be done in that regard?
Well, I mean, look, I think that this is an unprecedented situation, and let's hope my old employer, the Immigration Service, will be flexible enough to say if you cannot get into the US because of travel restrictions for 180 days, they're not going to waste everybody's time by making you do another interview at the embassy and coming back. But that's something that the agency will have to put out guidance.
Okay.
I have heard, and again, everything's so new, but I've heard at least in one instance where the embassy asked the nurse to do another medical examination. They asked the company to pay another immigrant fee, but they're not going to make the nurse do another interview. So that would be a way to get them 6 more months from the date of the medical exam. But again, that's one instance. It's certainly not
that's
guaranteed to be what they do in the future.
So, because obviously that's, everybody has so many different situations and different worries about the various scenarios. So another question, can I schedule if the NVC fees aren't paid yet? So this person clearly, they must have a approved I-140 and a current priority date.
Yeah, I mean, from what I'm hearing, if they have an approved I-140, Tanya, and that priority date, then they should contact their local embassy, and embassy will accept the NVC payment at the desk at the embassy. You won't have to go through the NVC process.
Okay. And I just want to bring up another question, and Chris, you mentioned this a few minutes ago as well about the visa screen. So we've got quite a lot of questions here from nurses who have got an approved I-140, even have a current priority date, but don't have a current visa screen. If that is the case, please make sure that you pass you can't take your IELTS at this time, but that you continue studying for your IELTS at this time, because you're going to need your visa screen in order to come to the US, correct? Carl and Chris, right?
Yep, no, I agree.
Yeah, so please make sure to do that. We also have, Kinetics have a free IELTS support group. You're welcome to join that. All nurses are welcome. We can put you together with study partners. We know this is a stressful time, but if you are in that kind of situation where you do have an approved I-140 and you have a current priority date, but you don't have your visa screen and you need to take your IELTS, please make sure that you focus on that, because the timing is critical, and once things open up and you can take the test, you might have to move really quickly in that regard. So keep up the studying. We have a question from Mary Rose, and I'm just going to continue for another few minutes because I know that we have gone over the time that we usually do. So Mary Rose asked, I have a refused visa status back to the USCIS, and my agency decided to refile my case. Due to the current situation, the demand for nursing increases. So with this, is there a possibility that the consulate might change their mind and issue a visa given the priority date is current?
I don't know whether I understand that question. Do you understand that, Chris?
I'm not sure. Maybe Mary Rose is talking about the 221G situation here. I'm not sure. I think let's maybe just move on to the last few questions. So Jason's asking a question. Jason, I think we have already answered that question. So we have a question from Irene, who said, hello, I'm currently under B1, B2, so visitor, and stuck in New York City. I came here to attend a medical convention, but things got worse and I wasn't able to go back home to the Middle East. Is there any chance I could get a temporary working permit as soon as possible so that I can help a place near, a facility near my place?
Yeah, I mean, boy, this is it's kind of sad in my view, but back when I started as an immigration attorney, we just had H visas, and nurses could always qualify for H visas. And then they changed the law in the 90s, and really, unless you're a citizen of Canada or Mexico, where you can get a TN visa, if you're a nurse from another country, there is no temporary visa, except if you're an advanced practice nurse. If you're a CRNA or a nurse practitioner, you may be able to qualify for an H-1B, although they've already made the selections for the H-1Bs that are subject to the cap. So, I mean, way back in 2001, right before 9/11, I actually testified in front of the Senate saying they should have temporary visas for nurses. And here we are 19 years later, and they've never reinstated those temporary visas. So I think the answer is no. You cannot get a temporary working visa unless one of these agencies or the federal government makes some kind of announcement that you don't need a temporary visa if you're a qualified nurse, we'll let you work. But that has not happened yet.
No. Okay, so thank you for the answer to that question. We're almost out of time. I see so many people joining us, and I'm so sorry I'm not going to be able to answer all of the questions, but I see some of the questions we have already answered, and this Facebook Live session will be It's being recorded and will be placed into the forum for everybody else to watch afterwards. We have a question about quarantine. So if this was also a confidential question, if I am able to come into the US, I know that I would have to do 2 weeks of quarantine. How will I be able to get a social security number? And should I take out travel insurance for the initial time in the US? Any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, so I think you probably will do a quarantine. I would work with your employer who might be able to forward you money or enroll you into their health insurance program earlier. And so before I bought that travel insurance, I would definitely check with my employer. Those were probably the only, I think I answered all the points. Is that right, Tanya, or was there a third question?
About the travel insurance?
Yeah, I probably would check with my employer before I'd buy that travel insurance and see if they can quickly get you enrolled on their healthcare plan.
Yeah.
They may be able to.
Yeah, so it depends. I think, Carl, I don't know if you have anything to add on that question, because that's an important question. Should nurses be able to come through? I think it's probably going to be on a case-by-case basis, because different employers might have different kind of setups on their current health insurance. Carl, any comments on that?
No, I agree.
Okay. All right, we are out of time. Carl or Chris, anything else to add or to share with the Fora nurses?
But just as I said at the beginning, this is a really rapidly changing landscape. I think everything we've said today is correct, but by this afternoon, there may be a little change. By the next week, there may be a lot of changes. So, please try to keep up to date on this. We'll try to do, everything we can to keep you up to date.
Chris?
Yeah, I would agree with obviously everything Carl said. Is the most important thing is that what we're telling you is the best information we have on April 3rd at 11:30 Eastern time. So check, keep yourself informed. Carl's website page is one of the best and longest on the internet. We have a blog that we're constantly trying to update information on travel information. And so those are two good sources to maybe start your information hunt with.
Okay. So everybody, we will keep you informed and updated as this situation evolves. Please keep the questions coming, and we'll try and ask as many as we can of the panel. Chris and Carl, thank you so much for your time. It's a really stressful time. Everybody is very overloaded now, so we really appreciate you giving your input to everybody who is watching. We want to, again, thank everybody, salute our healthcare heroes. In America, people say to people in the military, thank you for your service. So I think that is appropriate too, to all the healthcare heroes globally that are watching. Thank you for your service. You are the frontline soldiers in this battle against the invisible enemy. And we are just so inspired by your courage and your bravery and your dedication. So please, everybody, be safe, take care, and we will keep you posted. Thank you.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.